Welcome to Bloomberg Technoz Exclusive Interview with me, Maria Sarjana. Today we will discuss about maintaining trust, sustaining Indonesia economic growth with Mr. Shan Saeed, Global Chief Economist from IQI, joining us from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Mr. Shan, welcome to Bloomberg Technoz. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you for having me in your show.
Okay. Mr. Shan, in recent months, many Indonesians have started questioning the state of the economy. The rupiah has faced pressure, market experienced periods of sharp correction, and then concern over Indonesia fiscal outlook also emerged. But we are now seeing the rupiah strengthen, and then the market also rebounded. And from your perspective as a global economics, does this indicate that Indonesia fiscal position and economic fundamental remain strong all the way?
Absolutely. I was in Indonesia in April this year, and I am a witness that we at Juwai IQI, we remain buoyant, we remain bullish on the Indonesian economic outlook. The first quarter has clearly demonstrated where Indonesia's GDP touched 5.6%, and it continues to grow stronger because investment is coming up, aggregate demand consumption is very strong, and the favorable demographics of Indonesia makes Indonesia a very favorable country for global investors. We have witnessed from 5th June when Indonesian rupiah was trading at 18,200 and is now trading at 17,689. Indonesian rupiah has actually appreciated 2.8% in the last 10 days against USD, which clearly indicates that economy, yes, because of strengthening of US dollar, external shocks, currency faced pressure, but it has bounced back quite remarkably, and it clearly indicates that economy is strong, it stays resilient, and Indonesia continues to be on the global investors' radar.
Okay, so if the economy right now is still resilient and then truly strong, why have many people not yet felt the benefit, Mr. Shan?
Maria, you have to see every economy when it is growing, it takes time for that multiplier effect to come into the economy at the macro level. Yes, if you see the economy when we analyze the numbers, GDP 5.6%, inflation around 3%, fiscal deficit under 3%, foreign exchange reserve $146 billion, and overall the economic momentum remains strong. Yes, the government is fully cognizant and they fathom that when economy is booming, it may not translate to all segment of the society. It will take some time. And you have to understand that economy is not like a piano that you press fiscal nodes or monetary nodes or structural nodes and you get standard solution. Government fully recognizes that, connecting those different variables and bringing them together so that they don't deliver textbook solutions. Rather, government is more interested in improving the living standard. The government want to preserve stability and above all the sustainable long-term growth that the government is focusing on. Yes, it takes time, but it will not happen overnight. The Indonesian government under the leadership of President Prabowo Subianto is totally committed, and they are focused on improving the living standard of ordinary Indonesian, and they want to improve the lifestyle, the living standard, and to enhance the per capita income of ordinary Indonesian at the macro level.
Okay, that's a very good explanation, Mr. Shan, but the rupiah recently hit one of its weakest level on history, although it has started to recover right now. But from your perspective, I want to know what fiscal strategies should the Indonesian government prioritize to respond to rupiah weakness and maintain market confidence right now?
The government right now is using an amalgamation of fiscal and monetary policy. And that is perhaps the most smartest and effective way to maintain momentum in the economy in the long run. Yes, Rupaya went down to 18,200, but it has now recovered. So most of those investors who are looking at short run, they don't really fathom the fundamentals of the economy. The fundamentals of Indonesian economy remain strong. So there are two ways of looking at the economy. One is the macro way, and the other is street smart way. The macro way is when your GDP, for example, we take Indonesia GDP 5.6%, is higher than the inflation rate. What is inflation rate? The cost of living in Indonesia. When your GDP is higher than your discount rate is your cost of doing business in Indonesia. When your GDP is higher than the budget deficit, which is under 3%, budget deficit means performance of the government. So when your income level is higher than all these three variables, it means the government is performing well. It is delivering positive results. And we have seen I have been observing Indonesian economy for the last 5 years. Indonesian government have been very focused in maintaining higher GDP growth. And those long-term investors, they want to analyze how Indonesia is doing. So government is focused on, maintaining prudent monetary policy. They have a very strong statutory requirement of having 3% budget deficit, 40% under GDP, debt to GDP ratio, which the government has maintained. And most importantly, the government continues to build up foreign exchange reserves to tantamount to roughly $150 billion. So overall, the government is trying to maintain the growth trajectory so that economic progression and economic prosperity, it reaches to people, but it will take some time.
Okay, so maintaining the growth is kind of like the key of fiscal fundamental will be strong enough, right, Mr. Shan? So as you mentioned the Indonesia GDP, I have a question for you. Many Indonesians feel that their purchasing power has weakened, right? Do you see sign that household spending is actually slowing, or is this more a matter of public perception?
I think the Indonesian per capita income is actually growing. The consumption patterns remain very strong. And when I was in Indonesia, there's a street smart way of looking at the economy. How do you analyze the economy? By visiting restaurants. So when I was in Indonesia, at any given point of time on Saturday or Sunday, or maybe on weekdays, the restaurants are 70 to 80% full. So when people, the income levels are rising, when they have more income, they are willing to spend. And if you see restaurant business, there are 17 other industries related with restaurant business. You have food, you have supply chain, you have human resource, furniture, electricity, and so many other industries. So when people have confidence in the economy, they will spend money going to expensive restaurants, going to for their food items. This is the number one way. The number two way is car sales. Car sales in Indonesia are increasing. I was in Jakarta, moving from one side to other side. Jakarta is famous for having so much of traffic. Yes, the when I visited Jakarta for the first time in 2023, I did not see many Mercedes or BMW and Audi. After 3 years, I see a lot of people are now owning Mercedes. I saw a lot of BMWs. I saw a lot of Bentleys in Jakarta. So it means people are making money and they have the purchasing power to buy these cars. So car sales is another way of looking at the economy. The third is energy consumption. Indonesia is one of those top 40 economies in the world where energy consumption is very high. So obviously, when the income levels are rising, people are buying cars, they are buying expensive luxury items. And the third thing, they are using energy. So these are the street smart way of analyzing the economy. So I disagree with that notion that the income level or consumption patterns are going down. In fact, they have been very strong. And I have personally seen going to various restaurants at Ritz-Carlton, at Kempinski, Grand Indonesia, going to different malls. I saw most of the people, they're happily shopping, going to restaurants. And at any given point of time, I saw the restaurant, whether in the afternoon, whether in the evening, the restaurants were 70 to 80% full.
Okay, so despite the explanation and the economic data that you explained to us, many Indonesians still believe household purchasing power is weakening, Mr. Shan. In your view, how should the government respond to this concern?
I think government is trying to support many industries, including SMSEs. So SMEs are the backbone of the economy. And number two, the government is maintaining a positive growth momentum so that the businesses, they keep on moving. One of the ways the government is trying to support local consumption is by supporting the businesses. They have decreased many regulations and they have stabilized the economy. So once you give investors, the local investors, the confidence, then you can attract FDI. And we have seen in the last 2-3 years, FDI continues to be on the upsurge on a year-to-year basis. 10-15% rise is considered very appreciable in these challenging times. So I would say that government is giving support to local entrepreneurs and they are supporting consumption. So these are the two strategies which China adopted during COVID. And if you see Economist magazine in August 2020, they mention how China is using dual circulation strategy by supporting local businesses and by supporting consumption in order to maintain growth of the economy. And Indonesian government is doing the same thing by supporting local businesses and they're supporting, encouraging consumption so that the growth momentum stays strong and it builds the GDP growth at the macro level.
Okay, Mr. Shan, we need more explanation about, as you mentioned, car purchasing is rising up right now, and then restaurants still full right now. But many Indonesians feel the economic is getting worse. And while the government says condition is remain strong, so it's kind of like a different position or different opinion in this case. So why do you think public sentiment seems so different from the official views?
I think number one is the perception problem. Number two, communication has been lacking. So government needs to communicate more to the people that economy is still growing at a faster pace, that many advanced economies cannot even match Indonesia's GDP growth. Look at Japan growing under 1%. Look at European Union growing under 2%. Look at many advanced economies. So Indonesian economy after first quarter at 5.6% is one of the fastest growing economy globally and one of the top economies in ASEAN. So I think there is a communication gap. So I think engagement strategy with people will actually give them, and if you share numbers like we are sharing about the GDP, about inflation, I still see Indonesia's price stability is much better than many European economies which are struggling with price stability due to higher oil prices. Indonesia is very fortunate that government has maintained macroeconomic stability. They have maintained growth stability. They have maintained consumption stability. And they have maintained financial stability, which is key for the economy to grow at a faster pace. So overall, the government has done a good job. I think the only thing is the communication part and the perception part, it needs to be enhanced and it needs to be changed.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Shan, for your explanation about that. We already talked about fiscal and then fundamental economic Indonesia economic, I mean. Now we move to the tax, to the Indonesian tax, actually. So according to the APBN Kita report released on June 5, 2026, state revenue increased And then is it because taxpayers are facing a heavier tax burden?
No, it's not like that. When your GDP is rising, their revenues go up. Why? Because when businesses are making money, they contribute more to the government. So government gets more money when your GDP is rising. Indonesia is one of the top economies in ASEAN region with $1.4 trillion of GDP growth. And by 2030, Indonesia's GDP size will be $1.5 trillion. So when economies are growing, your revenues are going up, your taxes are going up. So again, there's a misperception that people are saying that government is putting more taxes. No, not at all. Government is not putting more taxes. In fact, the economy is booming. So when I was in Jakarta in April, I have come across many small businesses from Samarang, from Bandung, from Jakarta, and they shared that economy is growing. The potential is huge. Why? Because of 280 million people. So Indonesia continues to be relevant to the global economy because of favorable demographics. Whatever you produce in Indonesia, it gets consumed. So taxes are not rising. The GDP size is rising. That's why government is getting more revenue. So once the government gets more revenue, it gives government a position to invest in infrastructure. So this is one of the concepts that I have learned from my Nobel laureate professor Robert Fogel when I was doing my MBA at University of Chicago, that in order to increase tax to GDP ratio, you have to increase the GDP size. This is practically what Indonesian government is doing. By increasing the GDP size, you increase tax to GDP ratio. Once your tax GDP ratio goes up, government is in a position to invest in infrastructure. Again, once you invest in infrastructure, it has direct correlation with GDP growth. The government gets an opportunity to invest in healthcare, school, colleges, improve overall living condition of people, So more taxes are not coming. In fact, the GDP size is growing. That's why businesses are making more money. That's why they are contributing more towards the government's kitty.
Okay, so from your point of view, there is no tax increase in Indonesia.
No, absolutely not. It is the GDP side that is increasing. That's why the businesses are paying more to government because they're making more profits. So once you make profit, you contribute government in the form of taxes.
Okay, we already talked about Indonesia tax. Now we move into something crucial nowadays. It's about rupiah or Indonesia currency, Mr. Shan. The rupiah has reached its weakest level in history. Doesn't it disprove that Indonesia economy is in trouble? What do you think?
I think government has made a very prudent decision that they will only give incentive to those who deserve. Not everybody deserve tax incentive or tax credit. So overall, the government has made a prudent and judicious call in making, to support those businesses that, support that deserve government credit instead of. So you cannot have a blanket credit support for everyone. It has to be smart, it has to be targeted so that it can, make an impact on the economy. So what the government is trying to do, they are trying to support those businesses that can make an impact at the economic level, at the macro level, which can contribute positively to the GDP growth.
Okay, so apparently government can support everyone business, but it has to be something or a business that it's have a future. Is it correct, Mr. Shan?
Yes, absolutely. I'm glad you brought this up, that government cannot support all the businesses. Government will only support those businesses that are making an impact on the economy. And right now, not only Indonesia, but many governments are only supporting those businesses that can contribute employment, that can improve the per capita income, that can improve the productivity, and above all, it can contribute to the overall GDP growth. So if you analyze the economy, Indonesia has done pretty well in the last 3-4 years, and they continue. That's why at Juwai IQI we continue to stay buoyant and bullish on the economic outlook of Indonesia.
Okay, we already talked about Indonesia tax. Now we move into something crucial nowadays. It's about rupiah or Indonesia currency, Mr. Shan. The rupiah has reached its weakest level in history. Doesn't it disprove that Indonesia economy is in trouble? What do you think?
Yes, Maria, not only you, but many people have asked me this question. I don't think so. I disagree. Having lived in so many countries, and I can bring my global perspective, Indonesian economy stays resilient. Indonesian rupiah depreciated because of one simple reason. US dollar was strengthening. You have geopolitical risk, you have many other exogenous factors that were making an impact on rupiah. It was not just rupiah that was depreciating. Euro single currency also went down. uh, Japanese yen also went down. uh, Pound sterling also went down. South African real, Indonesian Philippine peso, Vietnamese dong. So all these currencies, they depreciated against US dollar. So now Indonesian rupiah has appreciated 2.8% in the last 10 days. Economy stays resilient. Consumption patterns are strong. Investment continues to flow in Indonesia. And most importantly, why Indonesia is very important for the global economy, because of 280 million people. The demographics is very favorable for the global economy.
Okay, so with the variable economy that you mentioned before, we shouldn't worry about rupiah right now, Mr. Shan.
No, Maria, currencies go up, currencies go down, the currencies appreciate. Every currency has got three variables. You have structural, you have cyclical, and political. I don't see any problem at this point of time in Indonesia. There is political stability, there is financial stability, and there is economic stability in Indonesia.
Okay.
And once you have these variables, I mean, there is no problem. Yes, currencies depreciate one day, but they also look at Indonesian rupiah. It was trading at above 18,000 on 5th June, and now it is trading at 17,600. So currencies move according to the market condition. But overall, I would give full credit to government for maintaining macroeconomic stability. At the same time, I give full credit to Bank Indonesia, the central bank, that has maintained prudent monetary policy. They have maintained structural stability in rupiah, taking into account many countries are facing challenges on their fiscal side, on the monetary side. But Bank Indonesia, they have maintained structural stability in rupiah, which is the judicious and sagacious move to do at this point of time.
Okay, so Mr. Shan, thank you for the explanation about the rupiah. And now we move into another significant things in the Indonesia economy. We will talk about market. Indonesia's market briefly crashed earlier this year before rebounding. Did this signal a loss of investor confidence in Indonesia, or was it only temporary market volatility?
I think there is no problem. Markets, just like rupiah, they go up and down. If you just see bond market receive $1.5 trillion in mid-May, and investors continue to see Indonesian companies favorably because the valuations are very attractive in Indonesia. So stock markets, they go up and down, and we have seen, because of global instability, it has been a risk of sentiments moving into the ASEAN region, not only Indonesia, but in fact, Malaysian stock market also it lost some value. Same goes for Vietnam and Thailand and Philippines as well. And at the start of this year, I have coined a term, fabulous five. I have mentioned about Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, Philippines, and Vietnam. I am overall bullish on ASEAN, but these five countries, they contribute 90% to ASEAN demographics. They have $700 billion of foreign exchange reserves. So overall, I'm quite buoyant on Fabulous Five, MITPV. These five countries, Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, Philippines, and Vietnam, they are going to drive the growth of ASEAN region for the next 10 to 15 years. So markets will recover. Equity markets, they go up and down. Same goes for the US equity markets. They suffer as well, but they recover as well. So markets, they go down, markets, they go up. It is determined by investor sentiments.
Okay. Mr. Shan, some members of the public are calling for priority programs such as Free Nutritious Meals Program, or we call it MBG here, or the Red and White Village Cooperative Program, or KDMP, to be abolished because they are considered a burden on the state budget. What is your response about that?
When I came in April, I was asked the same question, and I will reply you the same way. Government has got a lot of cushion to maneuver on the fiscal side. They continue to maintain statutory requirement of under 3% of fiscal side. They continue to manage debt to GDP ratio of under 40%, which is quite favorable. Any country having a debt to GDP ratio of 100% is in trouble. Indonesia is under 40%, so Indonesia is not in trouble. What President Prabowo Subianto's strategy is that we go down at the grassroots level and we support the local people, the school children. In this way, it will support consumption, it will maintain economic momentum, and it will support many industries. How it will make an impact on Indonesia? Will it make an impact on Indonesia overnight? No. It will make an impact over a period of time. I gave an example at that point of time that if Bank Indonesia, it raises rates by 25 basis point or it lowers rate, that policy lever, it takes good 12 to 15 months for that policy lever to make an impact on the economy. In the same way, this program will make an impact. At least it will take 15 to 18 months to make an impact on the economy. So government has got cushion and government can maneuver on the fiscal side. Over, if I were to see government's balance sheet, and I mentioned that when I came, overall, Indonesia's government balance sheet is strong because you have strong foreign exchange reserve. The income level, GDP, is at 5.6%. At the start of the year, I said Indonesia's GDP will be trading between 5 and 6% in 2026. Not many people believed in my insight. And now, first quarter, people have witnessed. First quarter GDP is 5.6%. Inflation will remain subdued. It is at 3%. Fiscal side will remain under 3%. The debt to GDP will remain under 40%. And foreign exchange reserve will continue to rise because FDI is coming. Exports are going up. At the same time, imports are also coming in. But the most significant thing government has done, and it has came in newspaper in April, that government has secured the key food items for the masses, for the ordinary man. That is chicken, eggs, flour.
Yeah.
So government has made sure that people should not worry about all these basic items: chicken, rice, eggs, wheat, which is the household consumption for many Indonesians. So I think government has secured food items for people, and I think they have done a good job.
So based on your perspective, MBG would not bother Indonesia fiscal. Is this correct, Mr. Shan?
I don't see any problem for Indonesia because GDP size is growing faster. Many people did not believe that. I have seen the economy. I have tried to read history of Indonesia. I've tried to study people. I've tried to study businesses in Indonesia. We at Juwai IQI, we have office in Indonesia. Our office continue to hire people and we are making good business in Indonesia. So overall, Juwai IQI is making good business, and we give full credit to government for having a very favorable climate not only for local investors, but also for foreign investors. And that has been the hallmark of Indonesian economic strategy in the last 2-3 years.
Okay, so Mr. Shan, many Indonesians fear the country would face an economic crisis similar to 1998. Do you think those concerns are justified?
No, no, no. There is no analogy between 1998
Yeah.
and 2026. I still remember when I was finishing my first MBA in Pakistan in 1998, I did a report of ASEAN financial crisis. And during that time, many banks were not well capitalized. The foreign exchange reserves were low. Currencies were weak. Today, it's a very different situation. Foreign exchange reserves are pretty high. Banks have got capital, they have got sufficient capital adequacy ratio. The liquidity is high. The central banks are in total control of the financial markets. The GDP is rising, and the government is effectively using an amalgamation of fiscal and monetary policy to maintain the growth momentum, to bring economic progression. They want to improve the living standard. They want to maintain price stability, and above all, they want to maintain sustainable long-term growth for the benefit of masses in the long run. So there is no analogy between 1998 and 2026. The timeline is totally different. And right now, we at Juwai IQI, we continue to stay buoyant, as I coined the term, fabulous five. So these five countries will contribute significantly to the ASEAN growth story in the next 10 to 15 years.
Okay, so we shouldn't worry about that, right, Mr. Shan?
Absolutely not.
Okay, so this is my last question. Based on our discussion and your analysis, can we say that Indonesia fiscal position right now is remains strong despite current challenges?
If I were to describe in one word, the balance sheet of the Indonesian government is very strong. When I talk about balance sheet, I'm talking about exports, I'm talking about foreign exchange reserve, I'm talking about GDP growth, I'm talking about FDI, I'm talking about portfolio investment, I'm talking about the number of companies that have been opened in Indonesia, I'm talking about the financial stability, I'm talking about Indonesia's central banks, prudent monetary policy. I'm talking about how government is using amalgamation of monetary and fiscal policy to spur growth. I'm talking about the growth outlook. The growth outlook, you pick up any report from Economist magazine, you pick up any report from Financial Times or Wall Street Journal, everybody is bullish and they are buoyant on the economic outlook of Indonesia for the next 5 to 10 years.
Okay, wow. It's pleasure to hear your explanation and also your insight. Thank you, Mr. Shan, for your insight. And then a valuable perspective and a reminder that despite global challenges, Indonesia economy remains resilient and continues to show strong growth potential. Well, thank you so much for your insight. And this is a pleasure to hear your explanation and analysis about Indonesia economy right now.
Thank you, Maria.
And thank you for watching Bloomberg Technoz special interview with me, Maria Sarjana. See you next time.